Welcome, low ego action heroes. I'm Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy, and welcome to the early version, which I do once a month, of Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Hello, Hemant, and Dilip. So once a month, I do an early one in addition to our usual late one, which runs at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. So today there will be two office hours. Hello, Manuel. So I'm here for up to an hour to answer any questions you might have about CX, UX, life, whatever's on your mind. I'm happy to give it a shot. There's no charge. And I am drinking a shake with berries in it. So if you see berries in my teeth, won't you be a friend and tell me, please? Other than that, it's starting to almost be spring here, which means all the lighting in my room has changed, which means no matter what I do, I have funky shadows. And I look like a raccoon, so I will have to work on my lighting this weekend. I hope everybody has had a great holiday week for whatever you're celebrating or not celebrating. You're traveling and you're in listening mode. Good, then you cannot see my raccoon eyes. Good morning, Ian. So I do have some questions ready for the late office hours coming up much later today in about 8.5 hours, but I have no questions right now, which means if you have a question, you are first on the list. You will not have to wait to get your question answered. So let me know if anybody has any questions. If there aren't any questions, we'll just hang out for a few minutes and chat, and then I'll wind down the stream. But if people do have questions, I don't want you to feel like I wasn't here to help you. So normally on the third Tuesday of each month, I also do an office hours at this time, mostly to catch my time zone and east of me. It was requested by people in Australia, since they're usually sleeping when I'm doing the office hours. And again, I've got no questions. So this is an open office hours, open questions. If you'd like to ask anonymously, you can ask at deltacx.link/ask. That'll come into my email. And that way I don't yell out your name and we don't catch you complaining about work or your manager. So again, all questions are welcome. However you want to ask them, you can ask them in the live chat. A context would be helpful. I don't know what context to give you. This is open questions hour. People are allowed to ask me anything, though my specialties are mostly in CX and UX. So typically people are asking about that. Hello, Shrivas. Ian said you briefly mentioned yesterday in Slack about implications of reusing participants. Yeah, I was going to do that on the later show today, but I can talk about that now as well if you would like. What time will you be doing now? Every Tuesday is 6:30 p.m. Italy time, and once a month on the third Tuesday, I do this early time as well, which is 10 a.m. for me in Italy. What's the difference between UX and CX, says Dilip. Let's copy and paste that into today's stuff. And then we've got Hemant also has a question, so let me drop those in to my list of questions, which I keep behind the scenes, and then they will be in the description in YouTube once this is archived on the YouTube channel in the Office Hours playlist. Okay, so let's start with what is the difference between UX and CX? There's a few different opinions on that. I've heard that CX is your customer support, and it's that team, and it's pretty much only that team. I've heard that CX is mostly the marketing department because they tend to be the people who measure and follow up on customer satisfaction. And then there are the people who believe that CX is the full set of customer experiences, the entire end-to-end journey, really a bit of brand experience in there, and it's everything your customer can experience with you at every possible moment and touch point and device and products and services and buildings and people and everything. I'm in the third group. I don't think CX is just for customer support or just for marketing or measuring customer satisfaction. I believe that when it's done well, CX and UX are pretty much the same thing. It's about researching and fully understanding who our target customers, users, partners, humans are, and making sure that we are specifically architecting things that will really match and meet or exceed their needs. So to me, if you're doing it well, there shouldn't be a big difference between CX and UX, but it really depends on whose definitions you go by. And Tango says hello from Australia. Oh, you're in Australia now. Excellent. I hope you've been well. Okay, now we've got Heymant's question, which I will put up on the screen. Give me 1 second to find. R for Everything is here. All the old friends. R for Everything, we will answer your question after this one that I just received, which is in way too small a font. Hold on. There we go. Quarantining again. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And so, let's add Simon's question in really quickly because it's relevant. If CX is for all experience, then what is service design to you? It's in there because it's really hard to do CX right without service design. Sometimes people think UX is just focused on the digital experience. What did people do on some sort of screen, a website, an app, a system? When I think of service design, I think whether the experience is digital or offline or in person or on the phone, I think of it as all those touch points and the ability to research and map out what those are, as well as how they interact with our background or behind the scenes people, processes, props, and systems. So to me, service design should be part of UX, but is often seen as something different. Service design is definitely part of UX. And in fact, in many of the CX specialists I've met, mostly focus on researching and the service design aspect. And so I think that we need to do a lot more service design in the things that we do. It's not enough to just map a high-level customer journey or something like that. So Simon, I hope you dig that answer. I hope it works for you, but if it doesn't, let me know your thoughts so that we can get them up on the screen and talk about stuff. Now back to this other question. How do you gain research experience if you don't have enough research experience to get work? This is one of the terrible things that's going on in the CX and UX world, is that for at least 5 years now, companies decided that in order to try to keep out people from boot camps, they were going to Simon says, all right, then we have the same perception. Okay, always good to hear, though. I'm always happy to hear a different viewpoint. Maybe I missed something and I need to upgrade my own definition. I do change my definitions over time because when people tell me something I don't know or didn't realize, you got to be flexible. And I also see that I think there are questions coming in anonymously. I'll grab those in a moment. So let's talk about how do you get research experience if you can't get research experience. So you can certainly try to work on, and hi, I-10 if I didn't say that. You can certainly try to work on your own sample project, and people do sample projects that might be fake or semi-real, and they put them in their portfolios. But the problem is that if you're not working with a mentor or coach, you unfortunately run a high risk that you are just guessing at the work. I've got a fresh graphic I can put up. So happy, made some graphics over the weekend. So remember, research is about doing all of these things well. Determining what we want to learn, turning that into goals and a strategy, writing our protocol or script or guide, recruiting the right people, executing the sessions, analyzing and synthesizing, and making sure we found the right insights, opportunities, pain points, and things like that. If you are still relatively new to UX research and you are still kind of guessing at these things or learning how to apply techniques and information, if you don't have a mentor or coach looking over your work at least weekly, and I say sometimes twice a week, you might just be guessing and you might be getting it wrong. That's not going to help you level up, and it's not going to, it's unlikely to help you have stuff in your portfolio that's going to make people say, oh, wow, this person really knows how to do research right. That whole thing that I showed you, wow, let's interview them. So remember, it's about more than just watching some videos or reading books. It's about more than trying a sample fake project or running a survey. It's about making sure you have really good coaching and mentoring along the way from an expert with at least 5 or more years of experience of specialized research work who can say, aha, here's what you're doing. Here's where it's okay. Here's where it could be better. Let's try this again. So when I'm coaching people and we're walking through that, sometimes I'm stopping them and I'm saying, don't go to the next step yet. Let's fix this one. Let's make it better before you move forward, because any mistake you make along the way could set you up for a flawed project, which is definitely not going to help you learn and definitely not going to help you have a better portfolio. Good morning, Monique. So I hope that helps. I don't have like a magical bullet, like you're going to get research experience if you do this. Really, you have to look for apprenticeships and internships. You might have to make up your own project, but if you're not getting good coaching and mentoring at an apprenticeship or internship or by yourself, then you need to find somebody who can give that to you. Otherwise, you are just guessing, and that might not get you to the level of proficiency that you are hoping to get to. Don't forget our levels, our phases of proficiency, as I like to say. All right, thank you for that question. Let's see if I am missing any questions here. R for everything. Yes, let's not forget R for everything. Good to see you. Let's drop this into my list of questions and put it up on the screen, because this is a one-woman show with a lot of copying and pasting required. All right. What to do if usability testing session's very short? I mean, the required testing is only for a small feature. There is definitely no rule that says a usability test must last a certain amount of time or must have a certain number of tasks or questions. To me, you are testing whatever you're testing, and it takes the time that it takes. To me, the thing to look for more is not necessarily the length, but really, again, how you designed the research. Back here, I gotta make that a little bit smaller. I think it's off the screen a little bit. So I'll talk while I find that and do that. Where did I put that? Research. Here we go, research graphic. So make sure when you are doing usability testing that you are testing a lot more than just, did people make it through this thing? Did they eventually get through it? Because you run the risk that this is flawed. You run the risk that you are kind of testing the wrong thing. So I would say be careful there. Oh, hold on. My mouse has disappeared. That's not fun. Yeah, sorry, everything froze up for a moment there, and my mouse disappeared, and I have wacky lines on the screen. I'm sorry, I'm probably trying to juggle too much here. So let's try this again. Still have a wacky line on the screen. Anyway, I shouldn't have bothered. But so be careful about planning your testing correctly to make sure that it really has all the information you're looking for is what you found. That's your goals and your strategy. So do not usability test like, well, they made it through, or well, they seem to like it. What was your original goal? What were you trying to learn? What are we testing for? And in usability, we're looking for improvements. We're not looking for, well, they kind of made it through, so I guess it's okay. So be careful of those common mistakes. Okay, Tango says, is CX and service design the same thing? Okay, we're back there for a moment. Let's drop that in onto the screen. So is CX and service design part of the same thing? CX is a huge thing that encompasses a lot of things. CX is really an umbrella term that has to do with everything that could be the customer experience. As I like to say, omni-channel, omni-device, omni-touch point. Everything that people can interact with. Service design is going to be part of researching and mapping that. So both mapping the current state of the experience and how it relates to your company and teams and internal processes and services and things like that, and then creating that desired future state. But there's also things that people tend to call UX or digital design. There's aspects of the brand experience. So it's not that CX is service design and these two are interchangeable. applicable. They're definitely related, but I think CX is more of an umbrella term that's going to include UX and service design and other aspects of researching, architecting, and improving our products, services, and experiences. Okay. Tango says, there's a delay in my questions. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm getting to them as fast as I can. Everybody knows I go in order. Okay, Shrivas has a question. And it looks like this. Oops, it's a little bit chopped off. I assume the rest of it is coming soon, but I think we know where you were headed with this. You said, how exactly would you define the role of a UX designer? I see UX research, UX design, and UI designer roles as three separate ones, but seemingly the general public doesn't. Oh, we could just put a period on the end of that. I think that's a finished sentence. Okay, so what do I think of that? I tend to agree with you. I definitely see, that is it actually. Okay, thanks. I tend to see UX research and UX design as separate jobs. Ooh, that reminds me, I should really be making a graphic out of Tri-Track Agile and a couple of other things that would really drive this home. If you think about Tri-Track Agile, we've got one stream of work, which is our research, and another stream of work, which is architecture, design, strategy, road mapping, things like that. Things that are fed by research. These two streams are going on at the same time. If you have only one person doing research and design, chances are they're not going to be able to do it well. They're not going to have the time to do two different streams of work at the same time and really well. Something's going to get cut and sacrificed and skimped on. So to me, definitely separate researcher and designer, and I say that as someone who does both. So just because I can do research and design doesn't mean that I should, because someone's going to tell me I'm not agile. Someone's going to tell me that when I want 19 weeks to do all the research and then all the design, that's slow and that's old-fashioned and waterfall and not agile. So I think especially as we want to look and be more agile, we need to build up more separate researchers and designers, and that way we won't be the bottleneck. And so we'll go back to Simon in a moment. So as for UI designer, I also do see a UI designer, visual designer, graphic designer, branding designer, whatever you want to call the designer focused on visual elements and brand and color and typography. I do see that as a separate role, because most researchers do not have that, are not strong in what I'll generally call visual design or UI design. Many even UX, information architects, and interaction designers aren't necessarily great visual designers, and many visual designers are not good UX designers or UX researchers. So it's not like these automatically all go together. These are all separate sets of skills and in some cases personality traits that are totally separate. I agree that the rest of the world doesn't get it, but that's mostly because they think that they can save money by lumping these things together. They see all the letter U's and think, oh, UX research, UX design, UX visual design or UI design, these must just be all the same, and we can save money by finding someone who can do all of it. But nobody ever stops and thinks, or few people seem to stop and think about how slow that would be to have one person responsible for all of it and to expect them to do world-class work. If we expect them to do terrible rushed work, then sure, throw it in there. Go ahead, pile it on. Have them write code as well. Why not have them do the marketing? But once we care about the quality of the work that people do, a little bit of Italian in my head there for a moment, the quality of work that people do, then of course we have to start looking at breaking things into specialties. We have specialties in engineering. We don't necessarily ask the developer to do the QA testing. I'm sure some companies are doing that, but generally those are separate jobs. Sometimes our front-end developer is a separate job from our back-end developer. Some people claim they can do both, and some people can, and some people claim they can do both, and they can't. Same thing as in our world. All right, let's go over to Simon's comment, which said, I've actually heard that the definition of service design is equal to your definition of CX. That service design is the umbrella term that includes everything in relation to the experiences. Yeah, again, I can see that, but I would have to say I'm not sure that I agree. Oh, Shriva says, this confirms the thoughts in my head. I will send a message in private why this was asked. Great example. Thanks for the detailed lowdown. Yeah, feel free to send people this video too. You can always find the time point at which we started talking about this on YouTube and send people a link and say start at this time. And if that person has additional questions, I'm happy to talk to them, no charge. Happy to take their questions, happy to talk to them. If they need help planning a team or a department, I do that. So Simon, I would say I don't think that service design is the umbrella term. But again, maybe that's just me. I think the question is, Simon, what do you think? Because I would say I still see the customer experience as the umbrella. It's all about the experiences that the customers are having. If I say service design is the umbrella, are we still focused on the customer experiences? I don't know. I've seen some funky service blueprints in my time. I would hope that a larger approach to CX would bring all of the data together. So now service designers are supposed to bring together the generative qualitative research as well as the voice of the customer, more secondary research. But again, you're never guaranteed that someone's doing that. So no, I don't think service design is the umbrella, and I think we're gonna have a really hard time making others believe that when service design is still probably more misunderstood than UX. Good morning, Udipta. Okay, a LinkedIn user. I don't know why your name didn't come up, but you've got a question here, so let's put it up on the screen. And let's see, put it here. Okay, and paste it in for the description later. And don't forget, if you enjoy these streams, please do subscribe and tell 3 friends. That's how we get the ball rolling here. Okay, in interaction design, how do you go about redesigning when users got used to an interaction pattern that's not necessarily optimal from heuristics or scalability point of view? Okay, so this is a good common question about how do we change something for the better when people are used to the way it is? And my answer to that is probably a little bit obvious, but I like to say that if you do make something easier, then sure, there is the learning curve and there is the moment of change. But if you really do make it easier and better, then ultimately people will be happy about that and it'll be a positive change. If you think about services and systems you've used, when they finally release that feature you've been waiting for and they finally make that thing easier, okay, you have to figure it out and get to know it. But then you're like, oh, I'm so happy this is here. So I never assume that any change, even to something people are used to, is a bad change or something we should avoid. We should always be looking to make things better. Now, to redesign this and to make sure we redesign it well, we really want to make sure we're using our research. Let's make sure that we've watched people both inside of our system and outside of our system. How do they do this? What do they do that's a tool, knowledge, workaround? Remember our old friend task analysis. So what are our tools, knowledge, workarounds in each step of this task? What about issues, concerns, obstacles, things that might block people? Let's really take a look at how people do this both inside of our system and outside so that we can then architect the best way to replace that old way of doing things and come up with the better way. If there isn't a better way, then we leave it, even if we think it's a little weird. But I would say don't just guess at a better way, or don't just say, well, heuristics say it would be better if it did this. Let's make sure we're really observing people, again, both in our system doing this and hopefully outside of our system from people who aren't our users or customers. How do they get this task accomplished or do this thing in whatever system or method they use now? And that will also help give you an idea of what's working and what's not working and where there might be some interesting insights and opportunities. So that would be my suggestion there. I wouldn't redesign without really good research to understand some of the perceptions and behaviors and priorities around how this particular task gets done. I hope that helps. Shrivas says, another thing that's been on my mind, also from observation, why do I feel like UX is always the part of the company fighting for importance while others, like developers, get away easy? And that's on the screen so everybody can see it. Yes, this is absolutely true. And again, it's just because what we do is so misunderstood. And the problem is that it's in a cycle of being misunderstood. And in my opinion on what Shrivas is saying, I think that a lot of this can be blamed on UX management and leaders. Now, you have two different groups generally of UX management and leaders. You have UX managers and leaders like me and some of the other people you've met on the show who come from UX and are doing our best to support UX and enhance it and elevate it and make sure that people understand what it truly is and that it's not just pretty screens and blue buttons. Then you have people who are in UX management or leadership and have never done UX before. They've been brand designers or visual designers or creative directors, or sometimes they're just from totally outside of our world. They're product managers, they're marketing, they're engineering. Those people don't understand what we do, and sometimes they're not listening. Sometimes they're listening. Most often they're not listening. They have their preconceived notions about who UX is and what we do and what we need and what we don't need and what our priorities should be, and they just go for that. And so I think that while our management and leadership are either made up of people who don't get us and can't really support us because they've never done the work, or we're being managed and led by people who think that UX evangelism is just saying yes to everything, even bad ideas like things that take away our power and make people misunderstand us more, like design thinking and design sprints. As long as you have leaders pushing things that support the misunderstanding and the minimizing and dilution of UX, then we're going to continue to be misunderstood. And so it's something I'm constantly fighting, and I think we all have to fight. But that's the way I see it. I think at this point, it's really in the hands of the leaders. Anybody who's not a leader can certainly open up the conversation and try to make change, but it's the leaders who have to make the change. They should have the authority to make the change, and they're not doing it. They're too often going, well, I said yes to design sprints. I said yes to lean UX. I said yes to democratization. I said yes to everything because maybe now people will want to sit at the lunch table with us in primary school. And I said, well, you just helped undo UX even more. All of those things undo UX. And we'll go back to Simon in a moment. Tango says, I think sometimes companies use UX UI Designer because the product doesn't require much reinvention work, modernization work. Every product needs reinvention. If we are telling ourselves a story, we just need a new, fresh look, that we're fine. Then you're going to be surprised later when customers leave you. You're going to be surprised later when a competitor jumps past you. So we can't just rest on, this project is small or, not that important or whatever. I'm sorry, there were some anonymous questions coming in and I totally forgot about them and missed them. I'm so sorry to the people who've been sending them in. Let's look at what Simon said and then jump over to all of the anonymous questions that I totally forgot about. I am very sorry. Thank you. Hopefully people are still watching and can forgive me. One woman show going off track. Monique will have to add your question to the bottom of the list now that I'm looking at the anonymous questions. Okay, Simon says, I follow what you say, and I guess it's also because I hear some voices here in Denmark that work with CX that focus mainly on user journey and CRM, training the frontline personnel to provide exceptional service and be friendly towards a customer. Right, if you think CX is just customer support, then you have a bit of a skewed definition of CX, because obviously the full customer experience and the end-to-end journey and the tasks and subtasks that customers have with us go far beyond customer service. So it's just a definition I don't agree with. Okay. It looks like this Monique's question and an anonymous question I missed say almost the same thing. So I think we're going to get to those fast. Let me just look at the other anonymous questions just in case they are similar. And let me organize these. Okay, sorry to the person who kept asking the same question for free. I'm sorry, not for free, over and over, thinking I wasn't looking at it, because you're right, I wasn't looking at it. I'm sorry. Okay, and then people ended up asking questions here. Okay, sorry, everybody's asking about recruiting. I'm so sorry I missed these questions. It is the curse of the one-woman show. All right, so let's get to the question that I've been asked multiple times in multiple ways by possibly the same person or multiple people. I'm not too sure. So these are all kind of variations of this question. So let me put it up and take a look at it. Yeah, for Simon, I would say when people say, oh, well, CX or customer experience is just customer support. And I say, well, then where's the, are you saying the customer experience is not the product and service that we sold them, but just our ability to support it? And if we sold them a better product or service, wouldn't they need less support? So I think customer experience is much bigger than just support. Okay. Finally getting to these questions. Sorry again. I want to start personal fake projects. I've been watching your videos. I'm working on my research plan. But where do I recruit participants with an extremely low budget for a fake project when friends and family aren't your target audience? And again, we got variations of this question, which may have been from the same person or different people. Can you discuss best practices for recruitment for personal projects? I'm specifically interested in civic tech and want a diverse pool of participants from all walks of life. And how can I recruit participants for a fake project for free? And there you go. Okay, so apologies to one or two people who asked me the same question 4 times because I wasn't noticing that the questions were coming in. I am sorry. All right, so the unfortunate truth here is that this costs money. There is pretty much no way to make this free. You can try to recruit people for free, but it may not work. You can say, hi, I'm just a student. I'm learning this. Would you please spend a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour with me? I can't give you anything for it. That could get you some people who feel for you being a student and still learning. Let's put up our feelings image. But it may not get you the people you need. It may not get you the people you want. It may not get you enough people. So unfortunately, when you are doing a fake project and all of the time and budget comes out of your bank account or pocket, you are stuck paying some sort of incentives to people for their time. Now, you may not be able to pay what companies are sometimes paying, 75, 100 American dollars for an hour of someone's time, but I think you have to offer them something. And I think it's got to be more than whatever they make per hour at their job now, or why would they take an hour off that job to have this session with you? And I'm assuming it's an hour, maybe it's not. So I would say you probably, if this is American dollars, you probably need to give people at least $15 or $20. Now that would mean if you want to meet 20 people, even for your fake project, and that's a medium size, you could go a little bit less, 15, you're still talking about $300 or $400. And of course, that's a number that not everybody has available to them. It is the right thing to do. It's what you can do. There are a couple of Reddit communities where you can try to post your screener survey and see if you can get people. You can post a screener survey to LinkedIn. You can post it to social media. You can post a screener survey to our Slack channel, over in the research channel. Go ahead. deltacx.com/links will tell you how to join our Slack channel, among other things. So you can certainly get your screener survey out there for free, but I would probably be recommending that you offer to pay at least something for people's time, since not everybody will necessarily be part of your research out of the goodness of their hearts. That's the unfortunate truth, is that I don't know of a great way to get people for free. Again, you can put the screener survey out there and say, we're not going to be paying for this, and see what you get. And make sure when you get the screener survey back, you are really checking if anybody who filled out the survey matches what you need. Don't get desperate and pick the wrong people. Because again, if you're going to show in your portfolio how you did this project, you're trying to show me you know how to do research well. Now, I don't technically care if you paid people or didn't, even though I think it's better to have paid people for their time. But if it looks like you just research with the cheapest and easiest people you can find, that makes me think, oh, maybe this person doesn't really get research. They just think they took a one-day course on design thinking, and now they think you can just go grab whoever is in the coffee shop. So be careful. I hope this helps. Is there a follow-up question to that? Udipta says, so far my experience with recruiting from Reddit hasn't been good. Lots of trolls. Relevant Discord, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Slack communities are a better option. Yeah, certainly if you can find communities related to the population you're looking to recruit, that's great, but always check with the community administrators first to make sure it's okay to post your screener survey. Sometimes they just don't want that. They don't want their community used or accessed in that way, and you have to respect it. Udipta says you can check out r/sample size on Reddit. Okay, I've got a call at the top of the hour. So I've got about 15 more minutes here. Let me know what your questions are. Shriva says, talking about paying people, I support that we need to pay people for their time, but I observe that lots of people just filled in random things for the quick buck they can make. Yeah. Oops, wrong button. That is why we want to make sure that we have questions on the screener survey that can possibly screen people out or screen people in. Sometimes I've started putting bot questions on there. If anyone took our most recent survey, one of the questions said, please type Don Norman in this box. And that way, if they're a bot, they didn't write Don Norman, who knows what they wrote in that box, and my system would throw them out. So it's kind of like the old CAPTCHAs, like what's 10 plus 8? Write it in this box. So I think you do have to look at these things very carefully, because there are a lot of people who fill them out just thinking they're going to make money. You want to be very clear that there is no money paid for filling out the survey. There's only money paid if they complete a session with you, whether you think of that session as an interview or an observational session. But you have to be very clear that if there is money involved, they're not getting it unless they complete that session. I also make sure to send people a consent form that says that certainly they can stop the session at any time, and if they are abusive, I can, though I haven't had an abusive person yet. Okay, R for Everything has a new question. And hey, Janani, how are you feeling? Let me add your question under R for Everything. And Shriva says, I did a course on community experience design. We were taught about recruiting people. MTurk was the worst. And if you want to just send a survey, Prolific is cheaper, and communities. Yeah, but UX isn't done by survey. So, be careful. Don't fall for some of the videos and courses that say just run a survey. That's usually marketing. UX doesn't run a lot of surveys. Kelsey, it is not too late to ask questions now, but I have 2 questions to answer first. Let's start with R for Everything. And R for Everything says, here we go. If after 1 or 2 usability sessions, I decide to change tasks order or the text, can I do that in the next sessions, or should I keep everything consistent? If I found that after 1 or 2 usability sessions, I really wasn't getting the information or insights that I needed, I would definitely stop the testing. I wouldn't continue to do more when I feel like I maybe didn't plan it right or it's not going the way I expected. I would stop, consider those as pilots, and the pilots helped me find the flaws in my study, and redo the study with freshly, start from scratch with whatever you need to change about it. So whether you need to change the tasks or reorder the tasks. I also like to make sure that if there's multiple tasks, some people see the tasks in different order. So participant 1 sees task 1 first. Participant 2 sees task 2 first. And we do these in different orders. So I would say you don't have to continue with a study when you find a problem. Consider the first 1 or 2 pilots that helped you find the flaws in your usability study, fix your usability study, and I'd probably start again. I10 says you can do a pilot study on user interviews for free with 3 people, but you would still need to technically pay them. You just wouldn't have to pay user interviews for their cut. That is also true. Okay, let's see. Let's put up Janani's question. Hope you're well. A little bit of spring allergies, maybe a change of seasons cold, but I don't think I have COVID. I've barely seen humans. Question regarding external panels for surveys. How do we ensure respondent quality is good enough? Well, first, we're going to have to define what is good enough and how will we know? So obviously, we don't want to say that a survey respondent was good enough when they answer questions the way we hope they did. So what is good enough? I think we have to figure that one out. So I would say depending upon who they are and what you're trying to find, you might want to put in a couple of what I jokingly call skill testing questions in there. So it really, am I missing anonymous questions again? Hold on. So you want to make sure that you are, let me see. There's another question. Okay, there is an anonymous question. I will add you to the bottom of the list after this current question. Okay, so again, I would have to say, Janani, it all comes down to what is our definition of good enough? Sometimes we are just surveying our customers, and whatever they say is whatever they say, and that's got to be good enough. If you're going to an external panel, then you are probably trying to, there's got to be a bit of screening in there. Sometimes you're doing a screener survey before they get the real survey, or the screener survey then has logic in it where they do the screener part, and if they pass it, they get to the rest of the survey, and if they don't pass it, they're just kicked out and said that they're not qualified. So I think I need an example of what good enough would be. Is this based on people with certain interests, people with a certain job, people of certain demographics? How are you going to know that you had the right people? I'd probably build that into like a screener section of the survey and then weed people out. Simon says, I've been part of user testing study where participants got a gift card instead of cash, and that can be a way to pay people. Yeah, certainly. I mean, whether you're using some sort of PayPal or cash, not sponsored, or Tremendous or something where it's a gift card, either way, you do have to pay money. That's the downside. All right, so let's take a look at a longer question that just came in anonymously. Let's make sure I've got it all in the copy paste, and then we'll take a look at Kelsey's question. All right, long question looks like this. Okay, it says, hello Deb, hope you're well. So we're working on adaptive designs, and from what I know, we create separate files or designs for different viewports. But someone in our team wants us to figure out a way through which we can create and display designs across different viewports without creating separate designs for them. So far, I've told them the way design tools work right now, we can't achieve that. Plus, it's better for developers to see the designs across different viewports separately so they have a clear idea of the differences, but I wanted to hear from you. Is there a way to achieve that kind of thing, or do we have to create separate designs for other viewports? Okay, so first of all, I'm not sure why you're doing adaptive design instead of responsive. You should be doing responsive design. If you have engineers who don't know how to code for responsive design, and you have to show them, here's what it looks like when it's this wide, here's what it looks like when it's this wide, here's what it looks like when it's this wide, you need better engineers. By now, engineers should know how to code for responsive design. So, but again, you might be in the situation you're in, and we have to address that. I would say the best tool for dealing with multiple adaptive views or widths or viewports, as you're calling them, would probably be Axure. And everybody knows I'm a big fan of Axure, and you also know that this is not sponsored by Axure. I pay them, they don't pay me. And Axure has something called adaptive views. And you can go into YouTube. I have a series of Axure lessons on YouTube for free. So go into the Delta CX YouTube. Of course, please subscribe. Find the playlist called Rapid Prototyping with Axure. I suggest you take the whole course. It's free. But towards the end, I think chapter 16 or 17 or 18 is adaptive views. And it shows you how you can make one design in Axure and then keep slightly modifying it for different screen sizes. And that way you're ultimately making one design, but it can be displayed in different, as you're calling it, viewports or widths or however you want to call it. So I would say the tools can do it, but I'm also wondering why your engineers need that, because I haven't heard of engineers needing that in many years. When responsive design was new and engineers didn't know how to code for it, they tended to need that. But if you are working in responsive design and a grid system and you're working closely with your engineers and they know how to do this because they've done it before, you shouldn't need to design this 17 different ways so people can see, here's the iPhone 13, here's the iPhone 12, here's an iPhone 8. Like, you shouldn't have to do that. So that makes me question your engineers. No offense to your engineers, but by now they should know how to code responsive design, and we should know how to design responsive design correctly and well with best practices and accessibility in mind. Okay, I hope that helps. Am I missing any anonymous questions? Yes, it looks like I am missing an anonymous question. Hold on. Let's just check that, see if it's a follow-up before we get to Kelsey. And then we are out of time. Okay. This question is not a follow-up question, so we'll do Kelsey's, and then we'll do this other one, and then we'll have to call it a day. All right, let's grab Kelsey's question. Give me a second to copy and paste it. We'll get it up on the screen. Okay. Here we go. Kelsey says, what would be a good method for growing the participant pool of foreigners who are now in my area? My manager doesn't want to rely on external tools like Respondent. I'm responsible for brainstorming ideas, and I can't think of other ideas other than reaching out to my personal network, but my concern is they wouldn't fit the criteria for user interviews. Okay, so we actually have an entire show on this. What is it, episode 105 or 106? Let me find it. Hold on. Yep, 105. So I would say go find episode 105. It speaks directly to this, and it's about how to set up your own pool of participants. Ultimately, I think you're going to be running a screener survey, and you're going to take the people who come in from the screener survey, and you're going to put them in your own database. I am slowly working on a competitor to Respondent. Hopefully that will be ready, at the rate I'm going, next year. I'm sorry, it's not my top priority. But you can still build a database, whether that database ends up in Excel, or whether for now you're putting people in MailChimp and emailing them when you have a study, and then of course they can, opt out of that mailing list. But I would say you can always create your own database. You don't have to use a respondent, but I would probably end up starting with a screener survey so that even if you are sending it to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, your friends and family who shouldn't be included would naturally be weeded out by the questions you ask in the screener survey. So again, make sure your screener survey is asking the right questions so that we include the right people and exclude the wrong people. Kelsey says Respondent does terrible UX and UI. Yeah, I know, and almost no competitors, which is why I've been working on a competitor, but it's been my side project for a couple of years. I just don't have the time or money to make it go any faster because I don't have an investor. It's out of my pocket. So, if anybody wants to invest, let me know and it'll go faster. Okay, so hopefully that one helps. And let's take a look at our last question for today, which came in anonymously. And then we'll have to end for now. But remember, I'm doing this all again in about 7.5 hours. And I'll have a special guest who's new to me. So hopefully he answers questions well. Okay, I have an upcoming UX research job interview, and the interviewer is a user researcher. That's a good sign. Good that they have other qualified people working there. I'd appreciate any advice on preparing quality answers to questions that may be asked, such as this. Thank you. Okay, so 2 episodes I recommend for you. If you go into YouTube and you search for Delta CX and then put in one of the numbers I'm going to tell you, you should be able to find it really fast. There's episode 128, which is how to give more compelling and concise answers to interview questions. And then there's episode 129, which are questions we should ask when we are interviewing to get to understand the environment that we're probably moving into at this job. Make sure it's a place where we want to work. Now, I'm searching my channel a little bit, and I'm looking for any shows that we did that have the word interviews or interview. Yeah, so episode 36 is an oldie, but hopefully a goodie. We talked with Michelle Ronson about some suggestions she had about your portfolio and about doing interviews for UX research jobs. So I would probably say my best answer would be to watch those 3 videos. Yes, that's about 3 hours of stuff. You could always run it on 2x if you feel that I speak slowly. Simon says crowdfunding. I thought about doing a crowdfunding for it, Simon, but especially once the pandemic hit and everyone felt like they had no money, it just didn't make sense to ask people for money. Maybe people feel like they have money now. Who knows? Yeah, I hope those 3 shows will help. Give them a watch over on the YouTube channel. Certainly good luck with your interviews. Yeah, back to the workday for me as well in a few minutes. So I'm going to play us out of here. Good luck with that. And again, I can't tell you what this person's going to ask, but I think watching those 3 shows will help you out. And just be ready with your portfolio, be ready to talk through a project, and be ready to explain your process in the project clearly and to show the thought and the decisions that you put into things. At least that's what I would be looking for if I'm interviewing a researcher. So thanks to everybody who joined. If it's nighttime there, have a good night, get some sleep. If it's still daytime for you, perhaps I'll see you in 7.5 hours when we do this all again. It's that one Tuesday a month where I do 2 office hours, Ask Me Anythings, and it'll be a little bit tiring. Continue to have the raccoon eyes. So thanks, everybody, and I will possibly catch you later today. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are